This conference will now be recorded.
All right, guys. So yesterday we did take a look at the various segments and various fields that are involved in an ADT message. So we did complete with the segments about MSH, EVN, PID, and then we did take a look at guarantor segment, insurance segment in detail. So that concludes about ADT message types. So today we will go through the next message type, which is SIU, which is for scheduling information unsolicited, basically an appointment related messages. As we have completed MSH, EV, and PID, we won't be taking a look at them again. So the next segments that we'll be covering today will be SCH, AIL, AIG, AIP, PV1, and so on. So we'll follow the same methodology across the board. We will be looking at the various message types, but if there is some segment which is already covered, we will be skipping that and we'll be jumping to the next segment which we did not cover. So within an appointment message, we have these 8 segments which you might be seeing. At times you might see PV1 and at times you might not see PV1 in the appointment message, depending on the scenario, depending on the standard that is being used by that specific hospital who is generating the appointments. So it always depends on the message that they are going to generate. So let us look at the next segment, which is an SCH segment, which is for scheduling information. So as I said, MSH is the standard segment present in all the messages. We have MSH. EVN might be seen or might not be seen. That depends on again, the interface person, whoever is generating an appointment message. And PID is obviously should be present in an appointment message so that they can get to know for which patient the appointment is being generated. And then we have, let's go through the SCH segment. SCH1 and 2, these are placer appointment IDs and filler appointment IDs. So what do they mean? Whenever an appointment is generated, in fact, not just with appointment, but whenever we generate uh, appointments within the system, there are certain type of IDs that will be assigned for an appointment. Now, when we generate a patient or when we create a new patient in the system, it usually assigns a patient ID, right? So that patient can be uniquely identified with that specific unique ID. In the similar way, each and every event or the module that is going to be generated within the PM or EHR system will have a unique ID assigned to it so that it can be uniquely identified across the board. For example, another example for this kind would be an order message. Whenever we generate an order message, an order ID is assigned so that an order can be uniquely identified by us and by the system as well. In the same way, result IDs have unique result IDs so that results can be identified individually. So So in a very similar manner, we have appointment IDs which are universally generated by each and every system so that they can be identified uniquely. Now, when we look at that in our segment, we are seeing that we have two different IDs: placer appointment ID and filler appointment ID. Now, what happens is at times, usually in the practical scenario, any one of these segments fields would be used to send the unique appointment ID. There will be two types of IDs generated by the system in most of the cases. One is the unique primary key of the appointment table, which is the unique ID, and you will also see that another appointment ID which is getting generated to show up in the application. So there will be an ID at the back end, there will be an ID which can be seen at the front end. So in few systems both would be same, in few systems both would be different. So if both are different, then you will see SCH1 and SCH2 being sent in the message. If not, um, then we will if not, then we will have only one ID in the SCH, either in SCH1 or SCH2. Then next we have SCH6. So this is event reason. Usually we send out comments within SCH6, which indicates additional comments written by the receptionist in case if they want to write for a patient. Then we have appointment reason. So these appointment reason are like whether it is a follow-up visit, whether it is a checkup visit, or whether it is a regular routine, or whether it is a walk-in, which means they have unscheduled walk-in. So that sort of reasons are mentioned in the SCH6. And then we have SCH8. In SCH8, we declare whether an appointment is uh, it's kind of a complete appointment, which means it is already scheduled and confirmed, or whether it is a tentative appointment, which means the appointment is not scheduled yet. It is scheduled, but it is not confirmed yet by the hospital, or whether if in certain cases if doctor is not available, they do schedule the appointment, where situation is like doctor may come or may not come. So in such scenarios, you will see that the appointment type is tentative appointment type. If it is complete, it means that it is confirmed. If it is not complete, if it shows tentative, then it means that appointment may or may not be there. So that kind of information is sending SCH7. So SCH6 we have comments. SCH6 we have comments. SCH7 we have appointment reason, which is whether it is a follow-up visit, nurse visit, or a flu shot visit, and so on. And SCH8 is appointment type, which indicates whether an appointment is uh, confirmed, or whether it is tentative, or whether it is rejected. So that sort of information is present in SCH8. And then we have appointment duration in SCH9. For some reason, I forgot to highlight this one, but SCH9 has appointment duration and SCH10 has appointment duration units. So this indicates whether appointment is for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and so on. And then SCH10 has appointment duration units, which indicates whether the duration specified in SCH9, um, whether is it in minutes, or is it in seconds, or is it in hours. So that duration units are indicated in SCH10. Then we have SCH16 and SCH20, which is filler contact person or and entered by person. This is nothing but here the receptionist information, whoever is scheduling an appointment for the patient, that will be sent. That will be captured in the PM system, and that will be sent over down the line to the destination systems like EHR system or any other systems. Next we have SCH25. So SH25 has very important role when we come to appointments. So what is the role of SH25? Usually what happens is whenever we schedule an appointment, we send a new appointment to the EHR system, right? Because that's a new appointment altogether. In that scenario, SH25 will be scheduled. The wall and then the term used here is scheduled. And whenever we want to go ahead and modify an existing appointment, so we will be sending an SIU S14, or if we are canceling an appointment, we will be sending SIU S15. So these are three different scenarios where we'll be generating different kinds of appointment messages. So during these scenarios, SH25 plays a major role, which indicates what is the status of the appointment that is being communicated to EHR. Okay, so there are many values that can be sent in SH25 like scheduled or no show or started, checked in or acknowledged. So depending on the scenario that is going to happen, the value will be sent in SH25. Let us take a couple of examples. Now let us say patient has visited the hospital, he's getting his appointment scheduled, then SH25 will be sent as scheduled. Now patient called the hospital. He did not arrive physically, but patient called the hospital and got his appointment scheduled. Even at that point of time, as it is a new appointment schedule, SH25 will be sent as scheduled. Then let us say patient is walked in. The day of the appointment has arrived. Patient has walked into the hospital. At that point of time, when the patient is actually walking in, then the receptionist will acknowledge the appointment, indicating that patient is already in the hospital and waiting to meet the doctor. So what happens is when receptionist acknowledges the appointment, usually SH25 will be sent as um, waitlist or started or acknowledged or checked in. Any one of these terms will be sent in SH25. So when they send that on the EHR side, the appointment which was already there, because when we create a new appointment, message will flow over from PM system to EHR system, and in EHR system, doctor can see all of his list of appointments which are in scheduled status, right? So when they do this second action, which is to acknowledge an appointment or check in a patient when the patient is arriving at the hospital physically, then the doctor system gets updated with the status saying that patient is acknowledged, which means doctor can look at it and understand, yes, that the patient is available in the hospital and ready to meet the doctor. Okay, so in that way, doctor can get to know who all are available, who are not available in the hospital for that particular day. And next, whenever they want to go ahead and cancel an appointment, then they usually send this value as um, cancelled, so that the appointment on the EHR side will also be cancelled based on the value that is being sent on SH25. So one key point here is we are seeing the values in SH25 are playing the role to change or update the status in the EHR. How this is happening? This is completely based on the ID that is being generated by the PM system, and using that ID, it will go ahead and update the values in the EHR system. So let us review the workflow again. Patient gets registered, an ADT message will be sent to EHR um, so that the patient information can be registered in EHR as well. Now the next step is to schedule an appointment. Appointment is scheduled. A unique appointment ID will be generated in SH1 or SH2, and that will be sent across to the EHR system. Now when EHR receives this appointment, it will go ahead and register that appointment in the EHR system, and the unique ID that has been sent in SH1 or 2 will be used as the ID in the EHR system as well to identify that specific appointment uniquely. And when there is an update to an existing appointment, like as I said, whether an appointment is acknowledged or cancelled or checked in, then there will be another appointment message will be sent over to EHR. So when EHR receives it and when EHR is going to process it, it will check whether there is already an appointment with the same appointment ID or not. If it finds one, then it will update the existing appointment. If it doesn't find one, then it will create a new appointment in EHR. Okay. As we have already sent the appointment in the first place from PM to EHR system, so EHR system will get updated with the existing appointment that's already there, and just the status of the appointment will be updated on the EHR database, which will ultimately reflect in the EHR application, stating that the current status of that appointment is acknowledged. Okay, so in that way, SCH25 plays a major role in updating the statuses in the appointments. Now we'll jump to the next scenario, which is to cancel an appointment. So if an appointment has to be cancelled, a receptionist will go ahead and cancel that appointment in the PM system, and SCH25 will be sent as cancelled, and that appointment will be cancelled or will show up as cancelled in the EHR system as well. How it will show up? Usually they strike off that appointment. So when you look at the doctor's appointment book, they usually strike it off, which indicates that appointment has been cancelled. Okay. Um, so what happens in this scenario is doctor will understand that the appointment has been cancelled. Okay. And there is another scenario which is to reschedule an appointment. Let's say a patient is unable to visit at that point of time and he wants to get his appointment rescheduled. The receptionist will go ahead and reschedule the appointment in the PM system. However, the actions that happen at the background within the PM application are little different. For receptionist, it is just going ahead and clicking on reschedule button and changing the appointment date and time. Uh, updated new appointment date and time for that patient, right? But what happens really in the background is when they when they reschedule an appointment, the existing appointment gets cancelled and a new appointment gets created with the new appointment ID. So what happens now? Let us say an appointment got generated with an ID 123456. Okay, this is the appointment ID using which the current appointment is running on for the patient. So this has been sent to EHR and an appointment has been is showing up on EHR application as well. So once that is done, next phase is to reschedule this appointment. So when the receptionist is rescheduling this appointment, what happens is the existing appointment, which is with 123456, will be cancelled and SIUS 15 will be sent over to EHR to cancel this existing appointment. To create an appointment, what will be sent? An SIU S12 will be sent over. And when they do a reschedule, a cancelled message of SIUS 15, sorry, SIUS 15 will be sent over to EHR, and the existing appointment on the EHR side will be cancelled. And a new appointment with some other appointment ID will be generated and that will be sent over to EHR. So these two actions happen at the background when they reschedule an appointment. It doesn't go ahead and alter the appointment date and time in the existing appointment. That is the key point here. Okay. Even if the appointment is being rescheduled, the system works in such a way that it will cancel or delete the existing appointment and create a new one altogether with a new ID when an appointment is rescheduled. Okay, so at this point of time, when a reschedule happens, two messages are triggered simultaneously. One is SIUS 15, other one is SIUS 12. EHR receives SIUS 15 for the existing appointment, it will cancel it, and simultaneously it will receive SIUS 12, which is a new appointment. It will register the new appointment for the patient. Okay, so in this way, um, the workflow works when we talk about appointments with all different scenarios. Another scenario is after patient arriving at the hospital, usually receptionist will perform a check-in or will start the appointment. So when they click on start the appointment time gets captured on the EHR system of since from when or from what time the patient is with the doctor. Now the appointment is started and the information has been communicated to the EHR system. Now when the doctor is looking at the EHR application, the appointment status will be started, which means patient is already with the doctor. Now when patient leaves the doctor's desk or once the 10 counter is completed, doctor will go ahead and do a completion of that existing appointment. Okay, because doctor is the person who will get to know whether the appointment is completed or still pending, right? So as soon as patient leaves on the EHR system, they will go ahead and update the status to completed. Now there is no message that is being sent back to the PM system. Till PM, the status is just to acknowledge an appointment. And once that is done, EHR system will determine whether an appointment is completed or not. Okay. Next, we will take a look at AIL. AIL is appointment location. So now when an appointment is getting scheduled, we do see that an appointment location is also important. Why is it important? Yesterday we have seen a scenario where we had multiple EHR systems and one PM system. PM is the central repository, and EHR systems are at different locations or small clinics present all over the city. But PM is one database, and um, the let us say the patient want to go ahead and visit one of the clinics. Let us suppose clinic 1. So when the PM is generating the appointment message, they have to ensure that they are capturing at which location the patient wants to meet the doctor, whether location 1, location 2, or location 3. Which is why capturing the location is very important, uh, especially appointment location. So that location information is sent in AIL segment. So in AIL1 we have set ID, which is a sequence ID. AIL3 we have the location ID, and AIL4 will indicate what is the location type. Okay. So each, as I said earlier, again locations have a unique ID. Okay, a unique ID to identify each and every location that is present across the board within their PM system. So if they have 10 different locations, each of those locations will have their own location IDs. Okay, so that location ID will be sent in AIL3, and AIL4 it will send the location type, whether it is a clinic or whether it is a hospital or whether it's a nursing unit, or whether it is some department. So that information will be communicated in AL4. Basically, the appointment, the location type, what type of location the patient is going to visit. And the next segment that we have is AIG. AIG. Before getting to AIG, we'll first complete AIP and we'll come back to AIG. So AIP is appointment provider information. So what is an appointment provider information? This is nothing but on which doctor the appointment is being scheduled. Okay. So let us say appointment is being scheduled for an orthopedic provider. Then that orthopedic provider's ID will be sent in AIP3, and AIP4 will be resource type, which is provider. What is the significance of resource type? We'll get to know when we look at AIG. So whenever we have to schedule an appointment in doctor's name, then we will have AIP. Now let us discuss about couple of scenarios that we usually encounter in the real-time world. Appointments can be created on anything, not just only on provider, or not just for the provider. Appointments can be scheduled for anything within the hospital. When I say anything, it means that it can be an X-ray appointment, it can be an ultrasound appointment, or it can be an MRI appointment, or a CT scan appointment, or an appointment for a provider. So there are many kinds of appointments that can be scheduled in the PM system. Now, all of these things which are being used for scheduling the appointments are called as resources. So what is a resource in general term, in general dictionary meaning of resources? Resource is something from which we can uh, derive some functionality and use it, right? So in the same way, all of these things like CT scan or MRI or ultrasound or X-ray, all of these are various functionalities that we are using. So all of these are called as resources. In a very similar way, provider is also a resource because he is providing his services. CT scan is providing, that machine is providing its service. X-ray machine is providing its service. In the same way, doctor is also providing his service. So everything is called as a resource. So provider is also a resource within a hospital. Provider is also one of the resource, which is doctor is also one of the resource. Okay. So that resource information will be sent in AIG3. Now, if we have a scenario where where the appointment is being scheduled for a provider, then at that point of time, AIG and AIP will have same information because AIG is a resource information. So provider is a resource. So we'll have AIG3 as provider ID, which is the resource ID, and AIG4 will have resource type, which is provider. And AIP will also have the same doctor information in AIP segment as well. So whenever the provider himself is the resource, then AIG and AIP will be same. Now let us consider the scenario on the other side. Let us say the appointment is being scheduled um, on a on an X-ray for an X-ray or for an ECG or for ultrasound or something. So when an appointment is scheduled for these things, the resource will be that X-ray or X-ray room or lab room, or if it is an MRI, then resource ID will be the MRI room or the MRI location, uh, and the doctor will be the radiologist who is actually operating at that particular room. Now, X-ray will have its own provider who is assigned to take the X-ray and document his findings, right? So, in scenarios of this kind, when an appointment is being scheduled for an X-ray room or an MRI room, then AIG3 will have that X-ray room information, uh, that room ID or the room information in AIG3 and AIG4, and the AIP segment will have the radiologist information who is actually assessing or taking care of uh, that X-ray assessments and all. Okay, so quickly repeat that. Whenever provider himself is a resource, AIG and AIP will be same, and whenever the resource is some other room like X-ray, CT scan, or MRI, then in that scenario, AIG will have the resource information which is to have information about that X-ray room or MRI room. And then AIP will have the radiologist or the radiologist information, who is the actual doctor assessing the patient. And AIP will have that doctor's information in the appointment message. Okay, so you'll definitely encounter this situation whenever you are implementing an appointment related interface, and you might see AIG and AIP are same, and you at times you might see AIG and AIP are different depending on the scenario and the workflow again. So the next segment that we have is PV1 segment. PV1 segment, we have already seen it, covered it in demographic message. But when we were talking about that, I also did say PV1 has its own significance based on the appointment, based on the message type that we are dealing with. When we are talking about PV1 in a demographic message, we did talk about various fields. Now we will talk about further fields, which is to uh, talk about this from an appointment perspective. So PV12 indicates patient class, which represents whether a patient is an inpatient or an outpatient, or or is it an emergency visit. So that kind of information is communicated in PV12. PV13 is assigned patient location. So what does this mean? This is nothing but the AIL information that we have captured, at which location the patient wants to get his appointment done. But when we talk about this from a demographic perspective, it represents the location of the patient where he got registered himself. So let us discuss about the same scenario that we saw yesterday. We have one PM system, which is central repository, and we have more than two EHR systems at two different locations. Okay, so in a demographic message, before looking at demographic message, let us understand the scenario. So now the patient is getting registered in the PM system. So it is present at one location. EHR, a PM system will capture that location as the patient assigned location from demographic perspective, which means that PM, wherever the PM is present, that is the demographic registration location. Next, the patient gets an appointment scheduled for clinic 1, which is for EHR, which is at a different location altogether. At that point of time, PV13 will be sent as that appointment location information of where the EHR location is. That information will be sent in PV13. So PV13 of demographic message will have PM's location. PV13 of appointment message will have the EHR location information in the message. Next, we have PV17 and PV18. So in scenario of demographic message, PV17 is primary care provider, PV18 is the referring provider. However, when we come to an appointment message, PV17 is attending doctor, which means AIP information is present in PV17. What do we see in AIP information? AIP, we see who is the provider for whom the appointment is scheduled. So that provider information is present in PV17. Basically, the attending doctor or the appointment doctor is what we can say. Next, we have PV119, which is the visit number. In here, we will be seeing the appointment ID, SCH1 or SCH2, the IDs that is being sent in SCH1 or SCH2 will be sent in PV119 or PV150. The visit number can also be sent in PV150, which is called as alternate visit ID, and or it is general visit number. Either in PV119 or PV150, you will see an appointment ID. Next, we have PV144 and PV145, which is to go ahead and send admit date and time and discharge date and time. So this will indicate admit date and time, which is appointment start date and time, and this will all indicate appointment end date and time. Okay. In this way, entire information related to appointment can be sent in PV1 segment as well. Okay. So that those are the main important segments of SCH message, SIU message, where we are sending out an appointment message from PM to EHR. Any questions with the appointment, guys?
It's a clear and direct section. No, it's clear.
Okay, great. All right. Next, we will jump to the next message type, which is for DFT. So, as the name itself suggests, it is detailed financial transaction, which means in the hospital workflow, it comes at a scenario where the appointment is completed, encounter is done, patient has been determined or patient has been diagnosed with some problem. Doctor has provided some medication, and if some procedures has to be performed, doctor has done that. After everything is done, a charge message will be generated from the HR system and will be sent over to the PM so that that particular charge can be collected from the patient if it is a cash payment, or an insurance claim will be generated and will be sent over to the insurance company if it is a insurance payment. Okay, so we have different scenarios here again. So there are many kinds of charges which usually generates from the EHR system. Let us look at them one by one. Let us understand them one by one, and then we will go in depth about the segment and the data field details of and a charge message. Now, when an appointment is being scheduled, usually we take consultation fee, right, for the visit. So that is one type of charge which can be charged to the patient. So there are usually there are three types of charges. Number one is charge for the visit, which is kind of consultation. Number two is charges for the procedures that has been performed by the doctor. Now, let us say the patient is visiting the doctor. Everything has been determined just by looking at the patient. Doctor didn't, doctor did not end up in doing anything. He just diagnosed the patient by looking at him. Then at that point of time, we just charge the patient for the consultation related charges. Let us say after visiting the hospital, there has been so there is an injection that has to be given. Okay, there is a flu shot that has to be given to the patient. So doctor will give the flu shot. Okay, now that has to be charged because that is a procedure that has been performed. So doctor will go ahead and add that procedure to the EHR system. A procedure code which will indicate that flu shot information will be added to the EHR system. Now there are two kinds of charges that are generated. One is consultation related charge, which is for the visit. Number two is second type of charge is for the procedure that has doctor performed. The additional procedure the doctor has performed, which is a flu shot. So that information will also be sent over to EHR, sent over to PM system from EHR system so that both can be charged by the receptionist towards the patient. Now there is a third type of charge. This third type of charge is little tricky and completely based on the workflow that is acquired by the practice. When the patient visits the hospital and met the doctor, doctor might at times may not be able to determine just by looking at the patient because there are many kinds of problems. So he might write a urine test or a blood test and so on, so that a test can be performed. Based on that, doctor will go ahead and suggest the medication. In this scenario, patient is going to the laboratory, getting his test done, and a result is sent back from the lab to the EHR system. Then doctor will determine the course of action and he will provide medications to the patient. In this scenario, there will be a charge incurred for the lab tests that are performed, correct? Because we cannot avoid that. Definitely, a charge has to be uh, paid by the patient to the lab. So it depends on the workflow. Now whether who has to charge that particular amount, whether the lab or the hospital, depends on the workflow that is acquired by the hospital and the laboratory. At times, few laboratories say that we'll generate our own claims and we'll send it over to the send it over to the insurance company. At that point of time, EHR doesn't care about the charges related to the orders and results. EHR will send only two types of charges. One is for consultation, second is for procedures performed. Let us take another scenario. Lab says, you please, lab and hospital. When there is a discussion between lab management and hospital management, lab management says that you go ahead and generate your claims, you do whatever you want to do, but you pay us the amount, test amount, or orders and results amount on the same day or the immediate next day. So in such scenarios, hospital will keep paying the lab, but at the end of the day, hospital will generate the claims, and when they are generating, they will also add this lab related charges to the claim and will send it over to the insurance company. So this is second scenario. So in such scenarios, we'll have three types of charges that is being sent from EHR system to the PM system. One is for consultation related charges. Number two is for procedures that has been performed, if any. Number three is about the laboratory related charges will be sent over from EHR to the PM system. So in this way, three kinds of charges are generated from EHR to the PM system. Now let us look at the segments that are involved, which will communicate this information back to PM system or the receptionist desk. So the segments involved to communicate this information in a charge message are MSH, EVN, PID, FT1, PR1, DG1. As we have completed first three, we won't be looking at them. We'll look at the rest of them, which is to check about FT1, PR1, and DG1. PR1 and DG1 are not seen always. PR is procedure segment, DG1 is diagnosis segment. A few vendors might ask for it, but most of the information is communicated in FT1 segment itself. We might not need to take a look at. Uh, I mean, we might not want to have PR1 and DG1, but if the vendor demands, then we do send. Vendor in the sense the PM system guy, whoever is receiving the charge, if they demand that they need PR1 and DG1, so we might send that information in the HL7 message. So let us look at the fields that are important for the FT1 segment. FT1 segment is nothing but financial transaction segment. So this clearly indicates the entire financial related information that has to be sent over to EHR, sent over to PM system. Sorry about that. FT1 is a set ID. So again, if we have multiple FT1 segments, this set ID plays the role of having the sequence number. So if you have more than one, then this will play a major role. Next is FT12, which is transaction ID. So as I said, each and every module that we are going to use in the system will have a unique ID. We have seen that appointment had a unique ID, patients has a unique ID. In the same way, charges that are going to be generated will have a unique ID that is called as transaction ID. Okay, and that plays a major role in identifying each and every transaction that is getting generated from the PM system. Next, we have FT13, which is transaction batch ID. So whenever a transaction is being generated, all of them will be combined into one batch on each day. So that transaction batch ID is present in FT13. Sorry, FT13. And next we have FT14, which is to send transaction date. Transaction date is sent in FT14, which means which at what time the transaction got generated and all. Next we have FT16, which is to send the transaction type. So this will indicate whether transaction is a credit, which means the patient is going to pay it directly. Next is to indicate whether the transaction is a charge, which means the insurance company, it will be charge will be paid by the insurance company. And next, we might see whether it is a co-payment related claim or co-payment related charge information that is being sent to the PM system or not. So basically, it will indicate the appointment type, charge type, transaction type, FT16. And then we have transaction code. This transaction type code will be sent in FT17. So this is basically a user-defined table, again FT17, whereas transaction type is HL7 defined table. When we look at the data types, you will understand what is a user-defined table and what is an HL7 defined table. So don't worry much about that. Uh, we'll discuss about that when we are talking about data types. FT113 is the department code. So what is department code? Whenever we have an appointment, we usually schedule that for one specific department, right? Whether the patient is going to be meeting a physician, or whether it is he's going to meet an orthopedician or cardiologist, and so on. So the department information will be sent in FT113. Then FT116 will have appointment related location. So whatever we have sent in AIL or PV13, basically the appointment location, that information will be sent in FT116. Most of the times you will see this field information being communicated as place of service. Okay, basically the place at where the service is being provided to the patient. Next we have FT119. FT119 is diagnosis code related information. So once something is diagnosed by the patient, it will be sent in FT119. The diagnosis codes that are used to identify the patient condition, those diagnosis codes will be sent in FT119 so that PM can understand what the patient has been diagnosed with and all. Next, we have FT120 and FT121, which is performed by and ordered by codes. What does this mean? Now, performed by in the sense the actual attending provider who is attending the patient. And when we talk about FT121, it is ordered by provider, which is nothing but the billing provider. So why do we have two different provider information here? What happens is at times we will see the appointment provider will not have the billing rights because of many reasons. One of the reasons is like attending doctor is very new to the hospital and he might not have the billing rights in the beginning. That is one scenario. Another thing is another doctor might be in the residency program and they might not have the billing rights. Only the experienced provider and the provider who can verify what the attending doctor is doing, whether it's correct or not, and then attest that as a proper billing by the experienced provider. So in scenarios where we have these two providers as two different providers altogether, then we will have FT119, FT120 as the attending provider who was actually assessing the patient. FT121 is the supervising provider, basically called as billing provider, who has the billing rights. In cases where the attending doctor himself has the billing rights, then FT120 and FT121 will be the same provider information, which will be communicated to PM system. But in scenarios where both are different, then we'll see that FT120 and 21 will have different provider informations in there. So the next segment is FT125, which is procedure code. Once the diagnosis is performed, we have a diagnosis codes being sent in FT119, correct? So FT125 will have the procedures that has been performed. So let us say doctor has given a flu shot, that is a procedure that has been performed. So that procedure related information will be sent in FT125. Then we have FT126, which is procedure code modifier. So what is a procedure code modifier? Let us say there is a procedure that has been performed on the index finger. Okay, for a fracture. Let us say it is for a fracture. A procedure has been performed on an index finger for a fracture. In such scenarios, if the EHR is sending out an information to the PM system that a procedure has been performed on the index finger, and PM will go ahead and generate a claim stating that a procedure has been performed on an index finger, insurance company will immediately deny that claim. They won't go ahead and release the claim amount there. Reason being, the information is insufficient. They have indicated that a procedure has been performed for a fracture on the index finger, but they did not indicate whether it is right index finger, right hand's index finger, or left hand's index finger. Okay, so that information can be communicated through FT126. Basically, FT125 will say it is a fracture procedure that has been performed for index finger. However, FT126 will modify that procedure code little by telling whether it is a left side of the hand or the right side of the hand. Okay, similarly, other aspects as well, whether some operation is being performed on right side lung, then FT126 will modify the actual procedure stating lung operation, and FT126 will have the right or left information. In that way, FT126 plays a very, very major role in identifying the appointments, in identifying the procedures uh, that has been performed and modifying that procedures according to the need. So the insurance claim can be clearly processed. Okay, so those are the important fields of FT1 segment. Next, we'll quickly see PR1 and PR and DG1 segment. PR1 will again have the same procedure code related information which we are sending in FT125. So PR1.1 is a set ID, PR1.2 is procedure coding method, and PR13 is procedure code. Procedure coding method in the sense the standard method that we are using, which is CPT codes. So that information will be sent in PR12, which is not necessary actually, which is why it is withdrawn. All the healthcare systems will use CPT codes only, current procedure terminology. They don't use any other thing, which is why it is withdrawn. PR13 is procedure code. This actually has a procedure code that has been determined by the CPT library. And next we have procedure code description in PR14. So it will clearly indicate what is the procedure code description that has been given. And then we have PR15. When that procedure has been exactly performed, that information will be sent in PR15. Now let us jump to the next segment, which is to check DG1 segment. DG1 is diagnosis segment where we'll be communicating diagnosis related information. Usually in FT119 is the location where we'll send this information, but in our scenario, we are looking at in case if you're sending DG1 segment in the message, then we'll be sending it here. DG11 has set ID. Again, DG12 has diagnosis coding method. Current method that we are using is ICD-10. So ICD version 10 basically. So that information will be sent in DG12. DG13 will have the actual diagnosis code, and DG14 will have diagnosis code information. And DG15 will have diagnosis date and time. And DG16 will have diagnosis type, whether it is an admitting diagnosis or final diagnosis or working diagnosis. Basically, it will indicate the status of certain diagnosis that is being performed. So that information will be communicated back to the EHR PM system. So in this way, the entire charge related information will be picked up from the EHR system and will be sent over to EHR. And this is more than enough for the receptionist to go ahead and generate the claims. So once the charges land into the receptionist system, they perform some process. They follow some process in order to generate claims. They do validate the procedures that has been added. They do validate the diagnosis that has been done, and whether diagnosis and procedures are relevant to each other. If they are relevant, they will go ahead and generate a claim and will send it over to the insurance company. Insurance company will approve and it will pay the hospital based on the information. Okay, in this way, we see that charge related is being communicated back to the PM system. So we have completed the first part of the cycle in the hospital workflow with the charge related aspects. What did we look at? We did take a look at an appointment message being, a demographic message being scheduled ADT A04, A08 or A28, A31 that will be flowing over to the EHR system. Next, we did take a look at appointment related messages, which are SIU, S12, S14, S15, and what are the scenarios that we have seen where these appointments are scheduled, cancelled, and updated in case updated in the sense rescheduled wherever it is necessary, and how the system behaves. And we have also taken a look at what are the important segments and fields of an appointment message. Next, we did come to the EHR side. We did talk about the scenarios and the workflow where charges are captured, how different kinds of charges are captured, consultation related charges, and the procedure related charges, lab related charges, which are the three major type of charges that will be sent back from EHR to the PM system, and what are the segments involved, and what are the important fields of these segments. So these three events, major events are done. Next, we'll be taking a look at further events, which is to look at orders and result types of events and what are the segments and appointments and message types that are involved in those. So which we'll be covering tomorrow. Okay. Any questions from the appointment related charges related topic?
In financial transaction where we are sending the amount, actually, if there is a company share amount or patient share amount or the whole amount that has been done for
Right.
the
So
charges.
yeah. So it depends on the scenario again. Now, what happens is usually in FT1 22, you will be sending the unit cost, which means cost for each procedure. In FT1 17, you might be sending fee schedule. Okay, and there is another where here in the FT1 11 segment, 11 field and 12 field will be usually used to send out this charge related information of how many dollars it is costing or how many rupees it is costing and all. But there is a key catch here. One, EHR will be sending out the charge information back to the PM system, which means EHR is the place where the amount for each procedure has been indicated and registered in the EHR system itself. Then at that point of time, EHR will be sending out the charge to the PM system. Now there is a second scenario where the charge for each procedure is already present in the PM system. At that point of time, EHR will not send any transaction amount that is being used. EHR will just send the transaction quantity which has to be charged on, and that information will be captured by the PM system, and the charge that is present in the PM system will be the final charge that will be sent over to the insurance companies. Okay, so these two scenarios are possible in the real time. Either EHR system itself will have each amount related to each procedure that is being performed, or the PM system itself will have the amount related to the each procedure that is going to be performed. And from my experience, most of the times what I have seen is PM will have the amount, because altering the amount always or updating the amount in the EHR system is little difficult. So mostly they manage that within the PM system. EHR will just send out the procedure code that is performed. PM will capture that procedure code and will update the charge when a claim is being generated.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Okay.
you're welcome. Any other questions?
So the message communication is actually I want to say it depends on the vendor to vendor, right? For example, some of the vendors they requested this segment, this field is mandatory in this particular segment.
Right.
This field is
Correct.
mandatory in this particular segment.
Correct. So we are talking from standards perspective,
Okay.
but in the real time it totally differs. I mean, differs in the sense it depends on how complementing we each other are with the vendors. So they will talk about what all the fields they need, what all the information they need in the HL7 fields and segments, and they will go ahead and send that information or exchange that information in those fields. At times, you'll see that required fields will be missing in the real-time implementations. They might not follow the exact standards, but if you talk specifically from standards perspective, these should be used. But in the real time, you'll see that those will be missing. However, the entire information is communicated through some other fields and they will be sending it over. So yes, you're right.
Okay.
Okay. All right then. So
Thank you.
we will connect tomorrow morning again and we will continue with the rest of the topics. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. You both have a good day. We'll catch up tomorrow morning. Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.